in honor of Kevin, we have to start it off with, he always starts it off with saying, are we recording?
Are we recording?
Yeah, looks like we're recording.
Oh, good. We're rolling.
All right, that's the start.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Andre. It's a pretty special episode.
Yeah, it is.
Anco.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So you probably, if you are a regular viewer of Anco, you probably realize that we're not Kevin and Joe.
We're not.
We are Chris and Andre.
Hey.
So we'll start by kind of introducing. Why don't you introduce yourself and say what you do here at Yard?
Yeah, so I'm Andre Johnson. I'm an urban designer and graphic designer with Yard & Co. And I've been working for Yard for about 2.5 years now. So yeah.
And my name is Chris Ashwell, and I am the senior storytelling producer, which is
fancy title.
Pretty cool title.
Yeah.
But really, I do all the video work for Yard is my role here, and just general storytelling. Bringing that's kind of my background is community storytelling.
Yeah.
So yeah. But the reason that we are hosting Anco is because we have tied up Kevin and Joe.
Yeah.
They're in the back.
Hopefully you can't hear them screaming in the back.
Yeah. Well, the reason is because we designed we spearheaded a really cool project for Yard. Something different for both Yard and for Andre and I. It's the first time that we've ever done anything like this.
Yeah.
But we created a card game. Called Talk of the Town.
And it is the talk of the town,
It
Chris.
is. It's going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be after this episode.
Yeah.
And so why don't we just start by laying out what Talk of the Town is?
Sure. Yeah. Do you want to get it started?
Sure. So Talk of the Town is, here, I'm going to read directly off the back of
Yes, definitely.
even though we created it. Talk of the Town celebrates unique stories and vibrant places in your community. With fun questions and thought-provoking scenarios, it sparks unforgettable conversation and helps build stronger connections.
So what does all that mean?
So it's a card game that, and if you want, we can go ahead and start to open this one up here. Yeah. This is our first prototype. So this is going to go in this is going to be in the Smithsonian one day.
Yep, it's a little bent up. We got to be careful with it.
Yeah, but it's actually, I'm surprised with how well it's held.
It's been pretty durable though.
Yeah, because
still glossy.
It's traveled and been played a bunch and stuff. So
yeah,
we'll cut to some B-roll of how this all opens up and works. But it is how many cards?
We're looking at 96 cards in here.
96 cards. There's some for you. And so the way the game is played, there are 3 different types of cards. There are story starter cards, which would elicit or bring about a specific story about a place. There are bright idea cards. So those are cards that hopefully just help people think creatively about the places that they live.
Yeah, definitely.
And then finally, there are some call to action cards. And those are just kind of interactive.
Yeah, they're kind of like a wild card.
Yeah.
They would elicit some kind of action that you would do, whether it's verbal, talking to somebody about something, or whether it's like literally texting a neighbor and asking them if they want to get coffee with you sometime.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we also have there's a 4th card, which is the blank canvas cards, which we included because we were too lazy to come up with any more
We had
ideas.
some extra space in the deck. But really though, they're going to be a really great thing that if you have a specific neighborhood, and let's say I'm from Westwood, and I want to write a very Westwood specific question, like maybe something about the town hall, I could write something that only me and my neighbors would really be able to relate to.
Yeah.
So that's a fun one.
Yeah. So we're planning on talking a little bit about how these could be more place specific in the future.
Yeah.
We're planning on talking about that at the end of the episode, so we'll hold off on that for now. But
yeah.
And so the way that you would play this is that the way that we kind of it was hard for us to come up with sort of rules or like a structure to the game, and they definitely these do not need to be played in any kind of structured way.
Yes.
And that's very specifically, we designed it to where you could put these cards just out on a table at a cafe or at a community event or just anywhere that people are gathered, and instantly, if people would get the idea, they pick it up, and it's like, tell us a story about a time you completed a rite of passage unique to your area.
Yeah.
Which that one came to my mind originally because in Millersburg there's this train bridge, this old train bridge that goes over a river creek kind of area, and they said that someone told me while I was filming there that was their rite of passage. It was like when you hit the age of like 13 or whatever, you would cross
that bridge.
Yeah, and they asked me if I wanted to cross it, and I was like, absolutely not.
No,
I stepped right up to it, and it's just like the railroad track, so there was like nothing.
Yeah. Have you asked if anyone fallen off of it? Lost the rite of passage that way?
Lost this. Like, well, guess you weren't meant to be an adult.
Yeah.
So people would get the idea, and they would, I think,
sure,
especially the story starter cards, you could definitely pull those aside.
Sure. And then we do have a kind of more structured way to play if somebody wants to, and those instructions are inside. It's kind of like Cards Against Humanity or like Cards Against Urbanity if you played that. Where you have one judge, one community critic, as we're calling it in this game, who would read the card to everybody, and then everybody has to come up with their own story or idea or action, and then that community critic can choose then what they think is the best and gift that person the card. So it's kind of the collect as many cards as you can to win kind of style, which I think is fun, and I just played that way with a few friends the other night, and we had a good time while drunk playing it.
While drunk playing it, yeah.
It was a great time, though.
Yeah, and we very specifically, and I know a lot of the listeners of this podcast would be people who are in planning world,
sure,
development, they're civic minded already.
Yeah.
We worked really hard to try to think outside of ourselves when creating these, to make sure that they would be accessible and approachable to anyone.
That was a bit of a challenge at first.
Yeah,
it's hard to get out of your own workspace in your mind and kind of think differently than what we would ask somebody at a typical community meeting or something like that. Right. We wanted people to be able to like bring up stories that they would not be able to come up with even just around their friend group, just kind of like elicited a totally different response than they may have been able to have before. So yeah, it's the goal.
Specifically with the bright ideas, that was hard because it's like hard, it's hard for us not to even just wording it like, well, how can we word that to where it's we're not like, how would you use historic tax credits to
yeah, right. Yeah.
But like for example, for some of the ones that I really like in the bright ideas is like come up with a holiday, unique, like a new holiday, uniquely specific to your area. I think it's a lot of fun. You know,
definitely.
Like to think maybe like one to honor, local resident that has an interesting story or something like that. And part of we can start to talk about the why of why this exists at all.
Sure.
But part of that why is just to connect people, to connect residents and get people talking, but also to get people thinking about their place differently.
Yeah.
So, there is that kind of like back of my mind hope that some of these conversations actually become tangible.
Yeah.
That somebody says, they're this in the spirit of competition comes up with a really good idea for a holiday or something, and then says like, why don't we do this?
Yeah, that kind of happened the other day because I was playing this game with people who aren't planners, which is the idea, is that you're getting everybody from all walks of life to play this game. It just happened to be me and my buddies on a Friday night, and we were just hanging out and playing this game. And one of my friends actually did come up with a really good idea for how to bring more live music to Over the Rhine, because we all live in that area. And it started out all kind of as a joke. We were all just kind of like joking around about stupid, silly ways, because of course we were drinking, and that happened. But then he said something about, in Over the Rhine, we really need to get people outside of their apartments and like using the space on the sidewalk in front of their building to be able to like have a moment where you can walk down the street and hear all these different types of music as you're walking down. So he shared this idea that I've seen in some places, but hasn't really been thought of in like such an urban or in Cincinnati at all, and I think would be really cool to see.
Yeah.
So we were kind of just being stupid and silly about it until it actually brought up a really kind of cool idea that someone then was like, Andre, make it happen. And I was like, all right, we'll see. I'll try. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really real world possibility.
Yeah.
That some of those bright ideas or just conversations that stem from this can either be, from one of the bright idea cards, or maybe even if it just sparks interest in, maybe you tell a story about a neighbor and you're like, I haven't talked to them in a while.
Yeah.
I'm gonna reach out to them, or So there's that purpose behind it, and to kind of go into like the genesis and the origin of the game. In my previous life, like I said, I've always really kind of seen myself as a community storyteller.
Yeah.
I had a nonprofit called Cincy Stories, and we needed to come up with a list of things that would elicit a specific story. We found it actually really difficult at first to get, when we wanted to hear stories from people, to get people in the right headspace for what a story is.
Yeah, to open up a little bit deeper.
Well, and they would a lot of times think that they need to tell their whole life story.
Sure.
Or sometimes people get stories confused with TED Talks, which there's some crossover, but a story is really usually a moment in time. So it was this list of questions like, tell me a time that you disappointed your parents. That is going to be a specific moment.
Yeah, raw story. That most people have.
This happened,
something.
and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this is what I learned. Sort of story.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with this list of them, and we had been, with my time here at Yard, we've been integrating these ideas of story starters and story booths and things that I had utilized in my past nonprofit. And so we developed these cards that were just meant for story, to get people thinking about stories that we would set out at our events and things like that. And it was actually Joe who brought up at some point, that would actually make a really cool game.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about trying to design a game? And so it was the team here was me, Andre, and Landon. Who's unfortunately, we didn't fly in from Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
But we definitely have to give a huge shout out to him, because a lot, and I know we're going to talk about how it was designed, but a lot of that
design came from him. Just straight from him. So
but that conversation sort of started. We started developing that list of questions. We started sourcing out to the rest of the team and asking them, what would you add? We started to think about how this could be something that's playable.
Yeah.
And again, even when this is played in its more structured form, it's still a very loose game. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like, there's really no end. I think we may have said like first person to 3 or something like that.
Something theoretical.
Theoretical, but it's really like whenever you're done playing.
Yeah.
Whenever,
and the idea is that
whenever you feel more connected.
The idea is there is no end in a way, but also the idea is also that that you kind of get carried away with it too, which is nice. But
definitely,
anyway,
definitely. So we started to do that. We started to think about the name, which was it kind of makes a lot of sense now when we settled on this name, but for a while there we did not have a very good idea for the name. So that took a little while. When did we?
Because I think we just started
last fall.
We started working on it probably in probably end of summer, maybe. So it's probably been like 6 months of development or something like that.
And parts have come, like pieces have come and gone. We thought we needed a timer. We thought we needed this or this added to it, and dice maybe.
Yeah, and we were like struggling to find the right person to produce it at all, which was actually quite a challenge, trying to figure out somebody local that would be able to do this kind of thing, because it's a very specific kind of print. But if anybody watching knows anyone local that wants to take on this, that would be awesome. Yeah,
we ended up going with someone who specializes, a printer who specializes in this, called Game Crafters, which I would recommend.
Yeah, great.
They've done a really great job. And you can order, if you have an idea for a card game or something like this, you can make just one.
Yeah.
And they have the templates, and
it's not
you would
that
need some
expensive.
design experience, obviously.
Sure.
But it's not that expensive just to get one set. So I've already started thinking for my family, for gifts or something, like making
Custom
like a
games.
family game or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even if it is just
That'd be
a
sweet.
deck, like a poker deck or something like that,
Sure.
a standard card deck, but putting picture, making the queen my mom or something like
Yes,
that.
definitely. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
That'd be really sweet.
Yeah. So
they're-
Game Crafters has been great, and that's
Yeah.
who and I think the challenge with that is the reason that Game Crafters is able to do this as opposed to the local printers for a price that makes sense is because they do nothing but this. They
Just
have the dies
massive
cut.
orders. Yeah, for sure.
So it's kind of like they're always bulk.
Yeah.
Like the what's getting printed on the cards is different, but this is all they kind of do. And they
Sure.
do board games, I think, and larger
all different
games.
things,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I'm sure they do a lot of specifically this kind of thing. So that was a bit of a challenge to find the right.
One nice thing about it though was the Game Crafter was what brought us this idea of this hook box, which I think is a really clever way to hold cards in general, but also just to like kind of present the rules and I think it was a really fun kind of like format to design on.
Yeah.
That I just would not have had the idea to do that, but Game Crafter had like a great set of templates and everything ready to go that we could just like pop the logos and colors and text everything we need all over it. It was really pretty easy. And fun to do.
Yeah, I like from your perspective, like design wise, and I know that we kind of fed Landon some vibe thoughts
Sure.
and things like that, and a lot of examples. We did study a lot. Like again, this is nothing that Andre and I have ever done before.
No.
This is completely new to us.
Something I kind of like wanted to do and was like sick when it was like brought to us. So I was like, this is awesome. But it was nothing I've ever done before.
Yeah, it's a really cool project to have kind of just both in Yard's portfolio, but personally, for both of us, just to be able to do something like this. But from a design-wise standpoint, why? Like, what's the why behind the design and all of that?
Well, the reason that I was excited about this like kind of form of box is it's just a little bit more engaging than like, a standard kind of box that you just slide open, pull the cards out. Like this brings you a different element of like, oh, I actually might want to pick that up and see what's inside because it has this just different mechanism of even opening and holding the cards in the first place.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. Also, the size of the cards was something that I really wanted to, keep pretty big, pretty large, because I just think it'd be really fun to be, if you're at a big table playing with like 8 to 10 people maybe, and you pull a card, you want to be able to kind of show the card off to people at the table.
Yeah.
I think that was a big goal for us, was to be able to have this kind of like big, legible, but also kind of like fun type for these cards. And then just the rest of the vibe or the colors, we wanted it to be, kind of like silly feeling, a little bit loose, like not to feel too like uptight or corporate, because we wanted it to feel very accessible to everybody and kind of, we want the tone from it that when you start playing to immediately feel just kind of like silly, you know? So I think Landon designed the logo and, chose the color palette, and he did a great job with that. I think it really does that pretty well, so yeah.
Yeah, and I really love the, when we were kind of presented 2 different designs and we split the difference on them because we really love the logo from one and then the kind of font and feel of the other.
Yeah.
But the logo I particularly love just because it has this like 60s, 70s game show.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think is really a lot of fun. And I can see in the future from like a video and animation standpoint, it feels very bouncy and it'll look cool animating it in different ways. It just has this very like kind of bouncy.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like it could stretch and stuff.
Stretch and bounce. And,
I'm excited to see what you can do with that.
Yeah, and I really like the silhouettes that you got and put around the box. That was another interesting aspect of it. It sort of forced our hand to design this box.
Yeah.
And so we had to figure out what we wanted on kind of each place of the box. But that, whatever, the invention is the mother of necessity or whatever.
Yeah.
Or necessity is the mother of invention, whatever.
Yeah.
That is what happened here, and it turned out really cool.
Yeah.
Another thing on the branding, we didn't want it to be Yard's brand.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? We wanted it to stand alone. We didn't want to make it the Yard colors and things like that. And we just put the logo
Just kind of on the bottom, just kind of
just the website and the logo.
sort of subtly. I think, we wanted it to be something that could totally live on its own. And hopefully that's what it does when we start to push this out a little bit more.
Yeah, and let's talk about the future on it then. Where do we see this living? Obviously, we talked about it is a game for anyone, but who is kind of the first or primary users of this?
Well, I think I could see. I mean, obviously, this is something we can take with us on every project that we do. We go to have meetings and talk with people in all these places across the country. It's good to have a set of fun card questions that we can just hand them and kind of make the public engagement process a little bit more engaging for them and us too. But I really want to see this. Sometimes you go to a coffee shop and they have a little thing on the side of the table where you can pull trivia cards and you're asking your friends
or
these
even
questions.
on the shelf with board games or card games.
Right. So I would love to see it in those kind of scenes, but especially at the coffee shop. I go to Sitwell sometime up in Clifton, if everyone knows it, but they've got those trivia cards and we'll just sit there and just trade questions back and forth. But at the end of the day, we're just talking about old presidents and stuff like that, and not really getting to the root of anything that's kind of more interesting to talk about. So I think this kind of thing at on the side of the table would be really cool to see in that kind of setting. So
and it's one thing that we have sort of encountered, or a problem. Maybe it's not so much a problem as it is just an opportunity, but is it works best, we're noticing, when people have share a deep tie to one really specific place.
Definitely.
So, I have a pretty big family, you have a pretty big family, that is perfect. Kind of perfect scenario for, I grew up in Mason, Ohio. In a lot of ways, Mason is a pretty typical suburban place, but it absolutely has a lot of its own individual stories and things that could be, specific to Mason. So that's one way. We have also seen it be played where everyone is only speaking about their own place because they don't, you know what I mean? If you're at a conference or something like that, and everyone's coming from all around the country or something, it can still be played in that setting where the kind of the point is not one specific place, but everybody shares a story from their place.
And that's kind of fun in its own way, because you get this idea that, this person's Oklahoma City or something. They're telling their own very unique stories from what my stories could be. So it's just two very different ways to play it, but in different results.
And I think that it would be really awesome in those kind of settings. Also, if you are somebody who does any kind of community engagement, if you do any kind of community building, if you are looking to strengthen ties, pride in a place, any of that, I think it's a no-brainer. It really is, something that I think a lot of different community organizations, civic organizations, governments, and things like that could benefit from. Yeah, because I want to see. This is something I've been talking about also with my friends a lot, but wanting to see community, especially around our age group, people in their 20s, that kind of, I don't know. We want to start seeing our age group lead the community discussions a little bit more, and being able to stand up and actually care about it more, because a lot of the people my age are very tapped out with that kind of thing, and I think bringing it to a new format that people can see as a little bit more fun and accessible is really helpful for that kind of thing. I want to see, when I go to the OTR community council meetings, have 20 minutes carved out where we can just, instead of talking about this or that happening in the neighborhood right now, let's gather around and play a little bit of a game and get to know each other a little bit more, get to know our place a little bit more. So definitely. And one sort of future hope that we have, which I think could be a really, really cool opportunity, is to make place-specific decks.
And we'll
we'll have to find the right place to pilot that. So I'm not sure how. If you're watching and you're interested in having one, like we're ready
For
to
sure.
start that process.
Of course.
But I'm just really interested about that idea of like working with a place to develop, half the deck or more may still be the typical questions, but in this this hypothetical place specific deck, you would have very specific questions.
Very specific ones, and then just even the look and feel of the whole thing can kind of recoat to whatever the place is. Like this brand it feels like it could fit a lot of different settings, but like having one deck that feels very over the Rhine or something of that nature would be really cool, interesting. Starting to show like the graphics, those landmarks.
The silhouettes.
Even like characters that are like here now, like would be cool to start seeing kind of like all over the box and on the cards too.
Yeah, that would be a nice touch. And for us, maybe it is a place that we know really well, like here in Cincinnati. But working with a place that we're not so connected to, that our office isn't right in the middle of, will be interesting because we're really going to have to. It'd be a really fun process of interviewing people and asking like what defines your place, not just for the questions, but for the design of the box, the colors, maybe, things like that.
Like one of our services, things we do is create place brands for places, just made one for like Mount Healthy, Ohio's Uptown District. But like looking at that kind of work, we have a certain like methodology where we start to dive deep into these places and like understand what that look and feel should be like, how that's represented, and like how well do people resonate with that kind of feel. It would almost be a deeper dive to have to get into each card, as well as like the look and feel for that too. So I think it could be like ideally something standard we just package with any kind of place brand we give people. Yeah. We also have this like thorough deck of cards that people can start, selling in their storefronts in this district or something.
Absolutely.
So that'd be cool.
Yeah. So, how do you get your hands on a Talk of the Town if we've done a good job at selling you on it?
Well, go to www.buildwithyard.com. I think there's a shop tab where you can go over there, and then it should be near the top of the shop tab.
Yeah, we'll definitely link in the post and things like that.
Yeah, check the bio.
Check the bio for more info. And so we are on a somewhat limited run right now. Yeah. So we are ordering more, but
in some ways we're still in the prototyping phase of this. Like this is like, it's a full product, but like it is an evolving product.
Yeah, that's one of the things too we've talked about, is that we want to in the future have like a portal where people can submit their own ideas. Yeah. We really want to crowdsource. That's beneficial to everybody, like crowdsource some of this, because I'm sure that there's just so many people in the world that could think outside of what our experiences are to say, hey, you should really add this in or that in. So,
no doubt.
So the future development of this, this is really still in that kind of prototyping phase. So the future development, I'm sure, is going to change a lot. But for at least the first 3 or 4 folks who order, these will be shipped immediately to you, so you can have it in your hands.
I think they're already in the mail somewhere.
Than a week. Yeah. They are. Yeah.
Already shipped out.
Some of you are already
talking to the town.
Talking to the town.
Or something.
So any final thoughts?
Just that I'm excited. This has just been a really unique thing to be working on. It's been great to work with you as you kind of like project managed this thing.
Yeah, it was awesome working with you as well.
Yeah, and I hope that we can keep working on this, but make a new game soon. I want to keep making games. I want to make a board game next.
Yeah, we have had some talks about that.
Yeah, we can make like an app. We can make like a video game. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, possibilities are endless.
Right? Awesome. Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks. See you.